The heat in Mama Toby's top-class laundry shop was not merely a temperature. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the lungs like a wet wool blanket. It smelled of scorched starch, bleach, and the pungent, humid sweat of 5 people working in a room meant for 2. Amara did not mind the heat. She stood at the ironing table, her slender frame almost swallowed by the steam rising from the industrial press. She was 21, though malnutrition and the oversized faded t-shirt she wore made her look 17. Her hands were rough, the skin around her fingernails peeling from constant exposure to harsh detergent. But her eyes, large, dark, and unsettlingly sharp, told a different story. While her hands moved with the mechanical rhythm of a piston, spray, press, lift, fold, her mind was miles away, reconstructing the logistics of the laundry shop. "Papa T," Amara said softly, not looking up from the white senator suit she was pressing. A shop owner, a balding man whose belly strained against a grease-stained polo shirt, grunted from behind the counter, where he was tallying receipts on a calculator. "What is it, Amara? If you are hungry, drink water. Rice is for closing time." "It's not food, sir," she said, her voice melodious but firm. "I've been tracking the detergent usage for the last month. We are wasting 25% of the profit on the premium bleach because Toby uses 3 capfuls instead of 1. If we switch to the bulk concentrate from the market at Oyimbo and dilute it by a ratio of 1:4, you will save 30,000 naira a month. That is enough to fix the generator carburetor that has been leaking." Papa T stopped typing. He looked at the girl, this stray he had found sleeping under the bridge at Odruelegba 2 years ago. He had given her a corner of the shop to sleep in and a pittance for a salary, mostly because she worked harder than 3 men combined. But sometimes the way she spoke unnerved him. She didn't speak like a gutter rat. She spoke like a textbook. "You have started again with your mathematics," Papa T sighed, though he wrote the numbers down on a scrap of paper. "Just press the cloth, Amara. Leave the business to the businessman." "Yes, sir," Amara whispered. She never argued. She learned long ago that being right was a dangerous thing for a nobody to be. "Hey, sorry to interrupt your listening for just a moment. If this story is speaking to you so far, I'd be really grateful if you'd subscribe and support the channel. It helps me keep creating more stories like this for you. Thank you." Outside, the chaotic symphony of Surulere roared. Danfo conductors shouting, "Odruelegba Stadium!" The aggressive honking of cars fighting for space on the narrow road, and the distant bass of an Afrobeat track blasting from a barber shop. Amara loved the noise. It was data. It was flow. If she closed her eyes, she could map the traffic patterns based solely on the frequency of the horns. She finished the suit, folding it with geometric precision, a perfect rectangle. "Amara!" Toby, the owner's son, shouted from the washing area. "Come and carry this water. My bag is burning me." Amara abandoned the iron. She was the brain of the operation, but she was also the mule. She lifted the heavy jerrycan of water, her muscles tightening. As she walked, she calculated the volume of water versus the weight, adjusting her center of gravity to minimize the strain. She was a genius trapped in a beast of burden, and for now, she accepted it. At least here, she had a roof. At least here, she was safe. Or so she calculated. The catalysts for the catastrophe arrived at 2 p.m. in a black Mercedes G-Wagon that looked like a sleek, dangerous predator amidst the bruised sedans of the streets. The car didn't just park. It claimed the pavement. The engine caught, and the silence that followed was heavy. The door swung open, and out stepped Madame Kemi Badmus. Kemi was a woman constructed of sharp angles and expensive surfaces. She wore towering heels that clicked against the broken concrete like gunshots. Her sunglasses were Gucci, her bag was Louis, and her expression was one of permanent, disgusted endurance, as if the very air of Surulere was offensive to her nostrils. She carried a garment bag, as if it contained the crown jewels. Papa T practically vaulted over the counter. "Madame, Madame Kemi, welcome, welcome. To what do we owe this honor? Toby, bring a chair. Wipe it first, oh." Madame Kemi ignored the chair. She ignored Toby. Her eyes swept over the cramped shop, lingering over the peeling paint and the piles of laundry bags with a sneer. "Papa T, she said to her voice low and dangerous. I do not have time for pleasantries. I have a wedding in Ikoyi at 5 p.m. The governor's wife will be there. Yes, madam. Big level, oh. She unzipped the garment bag to reveal a dress made of Swiss voile lace, a blindingly white fabric encrusted with Swarovski crystals. It was breathtaking. It cost more than the laundry shop and everything inside it. Look at the hem, she commanded. Papati squinted. It looks fine, madam. Fine? Kemi's voice rose an octave. Are you blind? Look at the plate on the lower left quadrant. There is a micro crease, a shadow. I paid 2 million naira for this material, and my tailor, that incompetent fool, folded it into the bag while it was still warm. I need it flawless, glass smooth. Now. Papati swallowed hard. Dealing with this kind of fabric was terrifying. One wrong move, one scotch mark, and he will be indebted for life. Madam, maybe we can... I don't want to hear maybe. Kemi slammed her hand on the counter, making the calculator jump. Iron it. If you ruin it, I will burn this shop to the ground with you inside it. Papati's hands were shaking. He looked at Toby, who looked away. He looked at the other worker, who was suddenly very busy scrubbing the floor. I will do it, Amara said. She stepped forward from the drying rack. She looked small and frail next to the imposing figure of Madame Kemi. Kemi looked her up and down, her lip curling. You, this starved thing. Do you even know the cost of what you are looking at? It is Swiss voile, high gauge. The crease is caused by thermal shock, cooling too fast in a folded position. If Papati uses the direct iron, the crystals will melt and the lace will burn.
Kemi blinked. She hadn't expected the terminology. Papati looked relieved. Yes, Amara is good. She is very careful. Careful is not enough. Kemi snapped, but she stepped back, crossing her arms. You have 10 minutes. One mistake and you go to jail. Amara approached the ironing table. She laid the dress out with the reverence of a surgeon handling a hat. She didn't reach for the heavy iron. Instead, she reached for the vertical steamer and a clean white cotton cloth. The geometry of the crease is an acute angle, Amara thought, her mind settling into its safe space. I need to relax the fibers, not crush them. Heat transfer needs to be indirect. She placed the cotton cloth over the delicate lace. She calculated the distance of the steamer nozzle, 6 inches. Any closer, water spots. Any further, insufficient heat. She began to work. The shop was silent. Even the street noise seemed to fade. Amara was in her element. She wasn't a laundry girl anymore. She was an engineer of fabric. She manipulated the material, coaxing the fibers to release their tension. After 5 minutes, she lifted the cloth. The crease was gone. The lace fell like water. It was perfect. Papati let out a breath he had been holding for years. You see, madam, perfect. Amara is a wizard. Amara allowed herself a small, shy smile. She looked up at Madame Kemi, expecting a nod, perhaps a grunt of approval. Whatever, Kemi muttered, snatching the dress. She inspected it aggressively, looking for a flaw, angry that she couldn't find one. Her ego, fragile and inflated, needed a target. You missed a spot near the zipper, Kemi lied, pointing to a perfectly smooth area. Amara looked. No, madam, that is the seam allowance. If I press that flat, the dress will not hang straight on your hips. It needs that structural integrity to support the crystals. The silence that followed was different. It was the silence of a bomb counting down. Papati's eyes widened in horror. Amara, he warned. But Amara, driven by her obsession with truth and logic, didn't stop. She saw a problem and she offered the solution. Actually, ma, looking at the waistline, If you wear a corset underneath, the friction might damage the inner lining. I would suggest. The slap sounded like a pistol crack. Amara's head snapped to the side. The force of the blow knocked her backward into the ironing table. A hot iron seared her arm, but the shock of the slap numbed the pain of the burn. She gasped, clutching her cheek, her eyes wide with confusion. She hadn't been rude. She hadn't been insolent. She had been helpful. Madame Kemi stood over her, her chest heaving, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. It wasn't just about the dress. It was about the audacity. A nobody, a street rat, daring to speak to her about structure, about logic, about what she should do. A gutter rat giving me advice? Kemi screamed, her voice tearing through the humid air. Spittle flew from her lips. You stand there smelling like poverty, and you tell me about my hips, about my dress? I was just, Amara stammered, tears welling up. I don't need your advice, Kemi shrieked. The words echoed off the concrete walls. For a fleeting second, Kemi's eyes glazed over, as if she were hearing those words from someone else. A memory of her own mother begging her not to marry a man for his money, warning her that pride would be her downfall. Kemi had screamed those exact words then. Now, projecting that self-loathing onto Amara, she lost all control. You are disrespectful. You are insolent. Kemi turned to Papa T, who was cowering behind the counter. Is this how you train your dogs? To bark at their betters? Madam, please, she is just a child, Papa T pleaded. She is a witch. Kemi pointed a manicured finger at Amara. Look at her eyes, calculating, scheming. She probably wanted to spoil the dress so I will be disgraced at the wedding. No, madam, I fixed it, Amara cried out, the injustice burning hotter than the iron. Shut up. Kemi lunged, grabbing a bottle of spray starch from the table and hurling it. It missed Amara's head by an inch, shattering against the wall.
Papa T, her voice dropping to a terrifying calm. Fire her. Madam, fire her, now, or I call the DPO at the Area C command. I will tell him you are running a front for stolen goods here. I will tell him this girl assaulted me. I will have this shack bulldozed before sunset. Papa T looked at Amara. He saw the girl who slept on his ironing table. He saw the girl who saved him 30,000 naira on detergent. He saw the girl who never complained. But he also saw the Mercedes outside. He saw the power. He saw his own survival hanging by a thread. He looked down at his shoes. Amara, he mumbled. Papa T? Amara's voice broke. Go, he said, not looking at her. But I have nowhere to go. My things. Get out, Papa T shouted, his own shame converting into anger. Did you not hear, madam? You have caused enough trouble. Pack your bag and go. Madame Kemi smiled. It was a cold, satisfied smile. She picked up her garment bag. Good. And if I see her anywhere near this street again, I will make sure she disappears for good. She turned on her heel and walked out, her heels clicking a victory match. Amara was given 5 minutes. She scrambled to the back corner of the shop, her hands shaking so hard she could barely zip her plastic Ghana must-go bag. She owned almost nothing. 2 shirts, a worn-out pair of slippers, a toothbrush, and her treasure, a battered notebook where she wrote down math problems she invented, logistical theories, and dreams of a company she would never own. She shoved the notebook into the bag. Here, Papa T said gruffly. He shoved a crumpled 500 naira note into her hand. It wasn't even half of what he owed her for the week. Don't come back, Amara. She is a wicked woman. She will kill you. I saved the dress, Amara whispered, looking him in the eye. I did everything right. That was your mistake, Papa T said sadly. In this country, nobody likes a person who is too right. He pushed her out the door and pulled the metal gate shut. The sound of the padlock snapping into place felt like a guillotine. Amara stood on the roadside. The heat of the afternoon had broken, replaced by the sudden violence of a Lagos rainstorm. The sky turned a bruised purple and the heavens opened. It wasn't a gentle rain, it was a deluge. Within seconds, Amara was soaked to the bone. The water mixed with the tears on her face. Passers-by rushed past her, holding newspapers over their heads, jumping over puddles. No one looked at the skinny girl, clutching a plastic bag. She was invisible again. She walked because standing still felt like dying. She walked past the market, past the aroma of roasting corn that made her empty stomach cramp. She walked until her slippers broke and she had to continue barefoot in the muddy, oil-slicked water. She found herself under the concrete skeleton of an uncompleted bank building in Victoria Island, miles away from the laundry shop. It was dark now. The city lights of the wealthy shimmered in the rain, taunting her. She sat on a pile of construction rubble, pulling her knees to her chest. She was shivering uncontrollably. She opened her mind, trying to find the logic. Variable A, hard work. Variable B, intelligence. Variable C, kindness. Equation, A plus B plus C equals success. Result, error. The math didn't work. The logic had failed. God, she whispered into the darkness, her voice cracking. Why?
She looked at her hands, the hands that could solve complex logistical flows, but couldn't stop a woman from destroying her life because of a crease in a dress. Why give me this brain? She screamed, her voice lost in the thunder. Why make me smart if I am just trash? Why didn't you make me stupid? If I was stupid, I wouldn't have spoken. If I was stupid, I would still have a bed. She curled into a ball, the damp cold seeping into her marrow. She was a variable that had been rounded down to zero, a remainder, a nobody. She closed her eyes, waiting for the night to consume her, unaware that 10 yards away, a sleek car with a flat tire was about to roll to a stop, bringing with it a variable she had never calculated: destiny. The rain did not stop. It was a hammer against the earth, drowning out the city's usual restlessness. Amara, huddled under the concrete lip of the abandoned bank, was no longer shivering. She was past cold. She was in a state of numbness, her mind drifting into a dangerously blank space where equations no longer made sense. Then, a splash of light cut through the dark. A massive SUV, a Range Rover Autobiography this time, swerved erratically toward the curb, its front left tire shredded and flapping like a dead bird. It ground to a halt 10 yards from her shelter. Amara watched, detached. A driver in a uniform jumped out, took one look at the deluge, looked at the tire, and then, in a move that defied logic but fit the chaos of Lagos, simply ran. He abandoned the car and sprinted toward a bus stop shelter down the road, vanishing into the night. The red door opened. An older man stepped out. He was dressed in a pristine white agbada that was immediately assaulted by the rain. He looked at the fleeing driver, then at the tire, and let out a roar of frustration that rivaled the thunder. Useless! Everyone is useless! He moved to the trunk, wrestling with the heavy spare tire. He was struggling. He was strong, but he was leveraging his back wrong. He was fighting gravity instead of walking with it. Amara watched him slip in the mud, the heavy tire nearly crushing his foot. Force equals mass times acceleration. He is applying force at a 45-degree angle on a slip surface. Friction coefficient is near zero. He will slip again. He will hurt his spine. She didn't decide to move. Her body simply reacted to the inefficiency. She stepped out into the rain. "Oga!" she shouted over the wind.
The man spun around, startled. He saw a waif-like figure, barefoot, soaked, looking like a ghost of the storm. "Who is there? Stay back," he warned, reaching into his pocket, likely for a weapon or a phone. "You are lifting it wrong," Amara said, her voice cutting through the noise. She walked up to the car, ignoring the rain plastering her hair to her skull. "The jack is not aligned with the chassis reinforcement point. If you lift it there, you will bend the frame."
Chief Badmus stared at her. He blinked, water dripping from his grey beard. "What?" "The fulcrum," Amara said, pointing. She didn't wait for permission. She knelt in the mud. "Give me the jack handle." She was small, but she understood leverage. She repositioned the jack. She found a flat stone nearby to stabilize the base against the mud. She slotted the handle. "Now turn, smoothly, don't jerk it." The chief, bewildered, did as he was told. The car rose effortlessly. Together, they changed the tire. It was a dance of necessity. When the lug nuts were stuck, Amara didn't use brute strength. She stood on the tire iron, using her full body weight at the very end of the lever arm to break the tension. "Torque," she muttered. "Distance from the pivot point increases force." When it was done, the chief stood panting, wiping mud from his expensive embroidery. He looked at the girl. She was shivering again, the adrenaline fading. "You are not a street beggar," he said. It wasn't a question. Beggar don't talk about chassis reinforcement. "I am nobody, sir," Amara said, turning to go back to her concrete shelter. "Wait," Chief Badmus grabbed her arm. His grip was firm but kind. "Where are you going?" "Back to sleep." "In this rain? You will die of pneumonia before morning." He opened the back door of the Range Rover. The leather interior smelled of cedar and air conditioning. "Get in." "I will dirty your car, sir." "I can buy a new car," Badmus grunted. "I cannot buy a new conscience if I leave you here to die. Get in." The transition was not overnight, but the trajectory was vertical. Amara started as a cleaner at Badmus Global Logistics. It was a pity hire. The chief gave her a uniform and a broom. But you cannot hide a light under a bushel, and you cannot hide a supercomputer in a janitor's closet. It happened 3 weeks in. The dispatch manager was screaming at a truck driver. A convoy of 6 trucks was heading to Kano with perishable goods. The standard route through Lokoja was flooded. They were going to lose the contract. Amara was mopping the floor nearby. She listened to them arguing about the Kaduna bypass. "The bypass adds 6 hours, the manager yelled. "The fuel cost alone will eat the profit." "Excuse me, sir," Amara said. The manager turned, annoyed. "Cleaner, mind your business." "The Kaduna bypass is longer by distance, but the average speed is 60 kilometers per hour, Amara said quickly, clutching her mop. "The Lokoja route, even without the flood, averages 30 kilometers per hour due to potholes. Time is distance divided by speed. You will actually arrive 2 hours earlier using the bypass, and because the trucks will be in higher gear, fuel consumption will drop by 12%. You will save approximately 450,000 naira on diesel for the convoy." The office went silent. Chief Badmus, who had just walked in, stopped at the door. He looked at the manager. "Is she right?" The manager scrambled for his calculator. He punched numbers. He turned pale. Actually, yes, sir. The math checks out." Chief Badmus looked at the girl with the mop. He recognized the spark in her eyes, the same spark he saw under the rain when she spoke of talk. "Talk," she muttered. Badmus commanded. "Sir? I said drop it. You are not cleaning floors anymore. You are coming to my office." Over the next 3 months, Amara became the secret weapon of Badmus Logistics. She didn't just work, she optimized. She reorganized the warehouse filing system using a color-coded algorithm. She renegotiated fuel contracts by analyzing market fluctuations. She was no longer the girl in rags. She wore fitted gray suits. Her hair was braided neatly. She spoke with authority. She was becoming the daughter Chief Badmus wished he had. Sharp, respectful, and brilliant. But the chief had a blind spot. He kept his work life and home life separate. He never mentioned his wife, and Amara never asked. Until the library project. "I need you to come to the house this weekend," Badmus said, signing a check. "My private library is a disaster. I need you to catalog the archives, sensitive documents. I trust only you."
"Yes, sir," Amara said. She didn't know the house address. She didn't know the name of the wife. She only knew the variable of loyalty. The Badmus mansion in Ikoyi was a fortress of white marble and gold leaf. It screamed wealth, but it lacked warmth. Amara walked in behind the chief, carrying a tablet and a stack of files. She felt a strange sense of déjà vu as they entered the grand foyer, but she dismissed it. Lagos was full of big houses. "Honey," a voice called out from the living room, "you are home early." Amara froze. The blood drained from her face. Madame Kemi walked into the foyer. She was wearing a silk kaftan, holding a glass of wine. She looked older, more brittle, but the arrogance was etched into her features like a scar. "Kemi," Chief Badmus said, smiling, "I want you to meet my new operations manager, the genius I've been telling you about. She's going to sort out the library." Kemi turned, a polite, fake smile plastered on her face. "Oh, finally. I hope she is better than that last idiot you." Her voice died. She looked at Amara. Amara looked at Kemi. The silence was a physical thing. It stretched, taut and vibrating. Kemi's eyes widened. She dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the marble floor, red liquid splashing like blood. "You," Kemi whispered. "Good afternoon, Ma," Amara said. Her voice shook, but she stood her ground. She wasn't holding a steamer anymore. She was holding a tablet. She was an equal in the eyes of the law, if not in the eyes of the woman. "You know each other?" Badmus asked, looking between them, confused. "Know her?" Kemi's face twisted. This is the gutter rat, the laundry girl, the one I fired for ruining my lace." Badmus frowned. "Ruining? Amara? Amara doesn't make mistakes." "She is a thief," Kemi shrieked, pointing a trembling finger. "She was rude. She insulted me. How dare you bring her into my house? Get out! Get out!" "Enough!" Badmus roared. The sound echoed through the mansion. Kemi flinched. She had never heard her husband yell like that at her. "Amara is my guest," Badmus said, his voice dropping to a dangerous baritone. "She is the reason my company made a 40% profit last quarter. She is the reason I am not stressed to death. She is staying." "But," "I said she is staying, and you will treat her with respect, or you will explain to me why you lied." "Lied?" Kemi breathed. "You told me you fired a laundry girl because she burned your dress," Badmus said slowly. "But I know Amara. She is precise. If she says the sky is green, I will check my eyes. If she walked on your dress, she didn't ruin it. You did something to her. I can smell it." Kemi went pale. She saw the shift in her husband's eyes. He wasn't looking at her with adoration anymore. He was looking at her with suspicion. She looked at Amara, standing there in her sharp suit, silent and dignified.
The nobody had returned as a conqueror. And in that moment, Kemi didn't just feel hate, she felt terror. She realized that Amara wasn't just an employee, she was a replacement. 2 weeks passed. The tension in the house was suffocating. Amara walked in the library, avoiding Kemi. But the chief was rewriting his will. He made no secret of it. He was tired of Kemi's spending, her arrogance, her childlessness, which she blamed on him, but which the doctors said was simply unexplained. He called his lawyer. "I want to set up a trust," he told the lawyer over the phone, loud enough for Kemi to hear from the hallway. "For Amara, she has the mind to run the empire. If anything happens to me, she takes the logistics arm." Kemi listened from behind the door, her fingernails digging into the wood. She takes the empire.
The thought was a cancer. It consumed her. They got her to take her house, her cars, her status. She would be left with nothing but her aging face and her bitterness. Eliminate the variable, she thought, solve the problem. The plan formed on the night of the chief's 60th birthday dinner. It was a small affair, just the family and the lawyer. Amara was invited. Kemi went to the kitchen. The cook was busy grilling fish outside. A pot of fresh catfish pepper soup bubbled on the stove, the chief's favorite. Kemi reached into her bra and poured out a small sachet. It was rat poison, purchased from a street hawker in a market where no one knew her face. It was white, odorless, and deadly. She didn't want to kill the chief. She loved his money too much. No, the plan was frame up. She would dose the chief's bowl, just enough to make him violently ill, to simulate a poisoning attempt. Then, she would plant the rest of the packets in Amara's purse. Assassin, she whispered to herself. She tried to kill him to get the inheritance early. It was perfect. The police would find the poison on Amara. The will would be voided. The girl would go to Kirikiri maximum security prison forever. Kemi poured the powder into the soup bowl designated for her husband. She stirred it in. The white powder dissolved instantly into the spicy dark broth. Perfect equation, Kemi sneered. She carried the tray out to the dining room. "Amara, darling," Kemi said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I want to make a toast to my husband." Amara stood up, unsuspecting. "Yes, ma." Kemi placed the poisoned soup in front of the chief. "Eat, my love, it's fresh." She sat back, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She watched the chief pick up his spoon. She watched Amara pouring the water. "Go on," Kemi thought. "Take a sip and let the show begin." The chief lifted the spoon to his lips. "Wait," Kemi screamed, suddenly leaping up, acting the part. "Amara, what do you put in that glass?" Everyone froze. The chief lowered the spoon. "Me?" Amara blinked. "It is just water, ma." "I saw you," Kemi pointed, her eyes wild. "I saw you put something in the soup. You want to kill him. Assassin, assassin." She flipped the table of logic. She created chaos, but she forgot one variable. The house had been upgraded, and Amara, the logistics manager, had overseen the security installation. The dining room erupted into chaos. It was a scene Kemi had rehearsed in her head 1,000 times, but reality was far louder. "Assassin! Witch!" Kemi screamed, knocking a chair over as she scrambled away from the table. She pointed a trembling finger at Amara, who stood frozen with the water pitcher in her hand. "She wants to kill you, Badmus. She wants to take your money. I saw her pour the powder." Amara's mind raced, trying to process the variables. Event, accusation, evidence, none. Motive, illogical. "Ma, I didn't," Kemi stammered, her voice small against Kemi's volume.
"Don't lie to me." Kemi lunged forward, grabbing Amara's apron. She shoved her hand into the front pocket, a pocket Amara hadn't checked since she hung the apron up in the kitchen earlier. Kemi pulled out a crumpled sachet. "Aha! Look, rat killer. She still has the empty packet on her." The lawyer gasped. The chief stared at the packet, his face unreadable. "Call the police," Kemi demanded, turning to her husband. "Badmus, look at this. She is a snake. I told you. She came from the gutter. She belongs in the gutter. She wants to kill you and inherit the logistics company." Amara looked at the sachet in Kemi's manicured hand. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The logic was falling apart. This was a setup, a frame-up, and in a country where the rich wrote the truth, Amara knew the variables were stacked against her. "Sir," Amara turned to the chief, tears well in her eyes. "I calculated the logistics of this dinner. I optimized the seating. I checked the temperature of the wine. I would never—" "Shut up!" Kemi slapped Amara. It was the second time in their lives she had done so. "Save your mathematics for the judge. You are going to Kirikiri." She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the area commander myself." "Kemi," Chief Badmus said. His voice was not loud, but it carried a weight that stopped Kemi's finger over the dial button. "Don't try to defend her, Badmus. The evidence is here." "I said wait." Chief Badmus stood up slowly. He didn't look at Amara. He didn't look at the poison. He looked at the massive 85-inch television mounted on the wall of the living room adjacent to the dining area. "Amara," the chief said calmly, "the remote." Kemi frowned. "Remote? Badmus, are you in shock? We are talking about attempted murder and you want to watch news." "Amara," he repeated, "run the protocol. Input source, HDMI 2. Amara, shaking, picked up the remote from the sideboard. She didn't understand, but she followed orders. She pressed the button. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a TV channel. It was a grid of camera feeds. Kemi froze. Her breath hitched in her throat. What is this?" "Last week," Chief Badmus said, hummed in disappointment, "Amara conducted a security audit of the house. She calculated that our blind spots were a security risk for kidnapping. She installed 4K cameras with motion sensors in every room, including the kitchen." He looked at Amara. "Rewind to 6:45 p.m. Camera 4. Amara's fingers flew over the remote. She found the timestamp. She pressed play. On the giant screen, the image was crystal clear. It showed the kitchen. The cook was outside. Kemi walked into the frame. She looked over her shoulder, right at the lens she didn't know existed. She reached into her bra. She pulled out the white sachet. Every person in the room watched in deafening silence as Madame Kemi Badmus, the socialite, the woman of class, poured the rat poison into her husband's pepper soup bowl. They watched her stir it. They watched her smile that cruel, twisted smile. Then they watched her slip the empty sachet into Amara's apron, hanging on the hook. The video paused.
The silence in the room was heavier than the grief. Amara looked from the screen to Kemi. The equation solved itself. X equals Kemi. Kemi was trembling. Her face had lost all color, looking like grey ash. The phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the marble floor. "Badmus," she whispered, her voice cracking. It's a deep fake. It's AI. This girl is a computer genius. She manipulated the—" "Stop," Badmus said. He sounded tired, old. "Just stop." He walked over to the bowl of soup. He looked at it, then at the woman he had shared his bed with for 20 years. "You didn't just try to kill me, Kemi. I could have forgiven that. Maybe you are mad. But you tried to destroy this child's life again. You wanted to send an innocent girl to prison forever just because you are insecure. She is a nobody," Kemi screamed, the facade finally shattering, revealing the ugly rot underneath. "She is a servant. Why do you choose her over me? I am your wife." "You are a mistake," Badmus said coldly. "A calculation error I have finally corrected." He picked up his phone. He didn't call the area commander. He called his head of security. "Mosa, come inside. Bring the handcuffs." The arrest was not dignified. Kenny fought. She screamed. She cursed. As the security guards dragged her out of the mansion she had ruled like a tyrant, she trashed, her wig slipping askew, her expensive kaftan tearing.
I am Madam Kemi, she shrieked as they shoved her into the back of the police van. Not a G-Wagon, but a rusted iron-barred Hilux. I will ruin you all. Amara, I will kill you. Amara stood on the porch, watching. The rain had started again, a light drizzle this time. Chief Badmus stood beside her. He looked at the empty driveway where the police van had disappeared. He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of rain and freedom. He turned to Amara. She was still holding the remote, her knuckles white. "Are you okay?" he asked. I calculated a 95% probability that she hated me," Amara said softly. "But I did not calculate that she was capable of murder. Evil is the one variable that defies logic, Amara," Badmus said gently. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are not a cleaner. You are not an assistant. You are the only person in this house who has ever looked out for me without asking for a dime." He took the remote from her hand and set it down. "Tomorrow we go to the lawyer," he said. "We are changing the name of the company, and we are changing your name." "My name, sir?" "You are not a nobody anymore. You are Amara Badmus, and you are my daughter." Amara looked at him, and for the first time in years, the numbers in her head stopped spinning. The equation was balanced. 2 years later, the skyline of Lagos shimmered in the heat, but inside the glass-walled conference room of Badmus and Daughter Logistics, the air was cool and crisp.
Amara stood at the head of the table. She was 24 now. The fearful hunch of the laundry girl was gone, replaced by the poise of a CO. She wore a tailored navy suit and her hair was styled in long, elegant braids. The projected output for the West African corridor shows a 15% deficit if we ignore the rail lines, Amara said, pointing to the holographic chart. But if we integrate the new rail system for non-perishables, we increase efficiency by 40%. The board of directors, men who had once looked past her when she served them coffee, nodded furiously, taking notes. They didn't see a street girl, they saw the oracle of Lagos logistics. "Approved," said the chairman. Amara smiled, meeting adjourned. She walked back to her office. It was the corner office, the one with the view of the lagoon. On her desk sat a framed photograph, her and Chief Badmus, now retired and fishing in Epe, on the day of her official adoption. She sat down and opened her laptop, but before she started working, she opened a drawer. Inside was an old tattered notebook, the one she had used to write math problems in when she slept on the ironing table. She kept it to remember. Her intercom buzzed. "Ma'am, there is a woman at the gate. She says she knows you. She's begging for money." Amara paused. She checked the security feed on her monitor. Camera 1 showed the front gate. The woman was hunched over. Her skin was leathery from sun exposure. She wore a faded, mismatched Ankara wrapper. She was selling pure water sachets from a plastic bowl, but she had stopped to beg the security guard. It was Kemi. She looked 20 years older. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the desperate hollow look of survival. The police case had drained her accounts. The divorce had left her with nothing. The prenup was ironclad against infidelity and criminal acts. The friends she had impressed with her cruelty had abandoned her the moment the money dried up. Amara watched her. Variable X, revenge. Variable Y, mercy. The old Amara, the hot child, wanted to go down there and scream, "I don't need your advice." She wanted to throw Kemi's words back in her face. But Amara was a logistician. She understood that hate was an inefficient use of energy. It yielded no profit.
"Let her in," the secretary asked, sounding doubtful. "No," Amara said. "Don't let her in." She paused. but send the security guard out with a full meal from the cafeteria and give her this envelope. Amara pulled out an envelope containing 50,000 naira, more than Kemi used to pay her staff in a month. Tell her, Amara said, looking at the screen, that this is advice she should take. Start small, be humble, and never look down on a nobody. Amara turned off the screen. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the chaotic, beautiful, mathematical mess of Lagos. She had been a stain to be removed, a crease to be ironed out, a stone to be kicked aside. But the building doesn't stand on the gold leaf or the marble. It stands on the stone that bears the weight. She watched from her tower as the woman who once owned the world walked away with a plate of charity rice, disappearing into the crowd she used to despise. Amara pressed her hand against the cool glass. She whispered the final solution to the equation of her life. The stone the builders rejected, she said softly, a smile touching her lips, has become the cornerstone.
Life is a circle, not a straight line. The toe that kicks the stone today may need that same stone to stand on tomorrow. Be careful how you treat the people you meet on your way up, for they are the exact same people you will meet on your way down. Remember, a diamond in the mud is still a diamond, and a piece of glass in a palace is still just glass. Time eventually reveals the true value of everything. If this story hit home for you, smash that subscribe button and join our family for more stories that touch the soul. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it, and let's settle the debate in the comments. Did Amara do the right thing by feeding Kemi, or should she have left her to her fate? I want to hear your thoughts.